And we are back. We are live. It is time for another Wire Chat. So you know you're in the right place because you see Stay Puft 1983. Sean, how's it going, man?
Doing fine, man. How's it going, everybody?
And we got Fire Guy Ryan, too.
Good evening.
What is that shirt, Ryan? I got to know. What is going on there?
You don't know?
I can't tell. Is that Scarface?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Because it looked like the New York Mets logo or something on the side there, but it was like messed up. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell what
that
that
Yankees
logo.
fan, John.
Yeah, that logo.
I bleed Yankee blue.
Right next to Seattle Superdome, and you're like, screw those guys.
Oh, God, I love sports. I love sports so much.
Sports ball is the best.
Man, what do y'all think of this whole thing with baseball? Man, I put on a baseball game, and I see behind the batter's box, they got actual fake fans, like cardboard.
Yeah, the cardboard. Yeah, it's really weird. It's really weird.
And then the NBA game, they got fans and like streaming in their chairs watching the game. I'm like, damn, this don't look good.
Yeah, everybody's just trying to find a crazy way to make it work. No, Kate, I will not make you a moderator. Go back to Roblox. Get out of here. If you haven't seen, this is the latest thing my daughters love, which is jumping onto my streams and asking for a wrench. JP Budget Collecting gave them a wrench, and now whenever he goes live, my girls show up and they moderate. So be ready for that. But our chat is full of people who want to talk about the Wire. We got Ruben Guzman, who was in here first almost an hour ago. My man. He goes to my LCS, so I see him almost every Wednesday. We got Rob Boswell. First thumbs down. Thank you, Rob. Love it, brother.
He says you're interrupting his Umbrella Academy.
Well, it's hard. You got to make those hard choices, but bourbon's a good choice. There you go. So enjoy that. We got Tessa is a nerd saying, yo, share some bourbon. There you go. Team. Fire Guys in the chat.
Hey.
The unruliest of all the simians is in the chat. Thank you for coming by, buddy. Kate is in the chat, but I'm going to skip her, and she's talking a bunch. She said hi to Ryan and hi to Stay Puft. Wrestling without a crowd is weird, says Tessa. Yeah, the crowd kind of makes wrestling versus other sports. It's just kind of there.
I don't even want to imagine football without a crowd.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Especially college. They depend on their fans.
Right? But we are here. We're going to talk about The Wire tonight. If you've missed the other episodes in these streams, we've been having some really kind of deep, fun discussions about this show. It's one of our favorites across this panel, and we decided, these guys persuaded me that I think the best way to talk about The Wire is in an unconventional method because it's such an unconventional show. So we've been going with a sort of thematic discussion. And tonight we're looking at evolution, or in some cases, de-evolution, the changes that people go through in life or on this show. And I kind of wanted to start off with a couple of overall questions, if you guys are cool with that.
Do it.
I guess it's part and parcel with what we were saying last week, but it's a number one is how is it in the real world, and number two is how is it in Simon's world, right? So do you think it's possible for people to make big changes in life? Because there's people that firmly believe nobody can change, that you are who you are, right?
In order for big changes to happen, it needs to be a complete wipeout of the old regime. And that's something that's hard in itself to do. Because you're always going to have people in positions that maintains the spot. And when somebody new comes in, those people are going to challenge their changes. So it's completely hard to completely change everything when you're going to have members of the old regime still in the position of power to stop you from making that change.
Absolutely. What about you, Ryan? What do you think?
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, you have to go all in, all or nothing, and then you have to deal with the residual kind of people from the old days who are going to push back against your change, even though they might, support something that you want to change about yourself.
Sure. And so I agree with you guys that I think change is very challenging, and people that actually make change, usually it's because of some huge impact on their life. People go through things like Bubbles goes through, right, where they have to dramatically change, both when you become an addict and when you get out of that life. So I do think change is completely possible. It's just rare and supremely challenging. Like real change is challenging. My wife's watching that show about Scientology, and you see some crazy changes going through people and going in and getting clear and then getting out, and change is intense. What did you want to say, Sean?
I saw Unruly said that I just described Congress, and that's exactly 100% how I looked at it. It's like a new president comes in, he's got to deal with the House of Representatives, Congress, the Senate, got to deal with all of them. And depending on the switch of Democrats and Republicans, you're going to have way different opinions, and not a lot of them are going to agree with your opinion, on your thoughts on change. So
Sure.
It's a constant battle, struggle and battle.
Hello, What the Deuce and Dudes Talking Comics. Hello, Mo. How you doing? I saw Sharon, Life with Two YouTubers. Thank you for coming by. So then if we agree that change is possible in the world, at least the three of us agree, do you think within the world of The Wire that the writers believe that characters can go and change?
Characters can change. I think all three of us, we're talking about the characters today, and they've evolved from where we first see them and changed over the course of the next couple seasons. Then they're almost like they're not 100% the same character that we met, So in the show, they definitely showed change within characters. I mean, I brought it up before about Carver, from the first season, he wasn't that very likable. And then over the course of the next 3 seasons or 4 seasons, he started to change his attitude and his ways. He started to become more mature as a person, as a character. And that really showed that over the course of 5 seasons, he adapted to the change and changed himself as in the process.
Sure.
The more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm realizing how many people in this show did go through like a pretty big A to B change over the 5 seasons. So I think change isn't always a good thing in certain people's cases, and some characters end up in the lowest possible place after starting from someplace higher. But yeah, there's all kinds of different evolutions, as you could say. And that's
I think we'll get into some of the idea of like, depending on how you look at somebody's change, are they evolving or are they devolving? Like, are they maturing and getting better in some fashion, or are they regressing in some way? But that's all change, whether you like the change or not, right? So that was just something I was thinking about as we were putting this all together. Our fourth deep dive discussion, this time on evolution. And I'm going to get us kicked off with my character that I picked for this. Dennis or Cuddy is one of those characters that I just feel like, at least earlier than a lot of the characters on the show, seems to exemplify change for me. A lot of characters maybe find their change in the 5th season, when the show is wrapping up. I think Dennis finds his redemption much earlier. It doesn't mean that he's done and that he's got nothing left to do, because he continues to struggle with his change as it goes forward. But as a character, we meet in prison, but on his way out, and then trying to find a better path, but then getting drawn back into his life of crime, and then being forced to examine which one does he really want to go through? Where does he want to go with his life? He ends up making a strong choice. And he's guided by some people in his life, helped by people that you might not expect, like the Barksdale organization helps him in a big way. His redemption is both because of what the Barksdales were going to have him do instead, and because of what they offer him financially, so that he can make his growth. But I really do think, for me at least, we talked about Bubbles and his evolution as a character, and certainly his addiction journey. But for me, the most stark change is Cuddy, the guy with the guns and the drugs and the ladies and that is like in the game completely. And then this Cuddy, who basically is saying, it's not in me anymore. He's just can't do it anymore, and that he goes this other route. And the Cuddy we see at the end of the show in season 5 is that guy. What do you guys think about Dennis?
13 years in prison, if I'm not mistaken, it was.
Yeah, I think that's right.
He spent 13 years in the joint. He knows that when he got out, that it's either you go back to that life that you lived that put you in there, or you try to make the change to not go back in or end up dead. And it's always a conflicting battle within yourself, because you want to change, you want to do something different in your life, but you realize how hard it is being a convict, that, it's hard to make that change when people look at you as a convict and they're not saying, oh, he's been in jail for so long, he's just going to run back to the streets. And when things was getting tough for him, he went back to the Barksdale organization, because he's like, man, these are the people that at least still looked out for me when I was in the joint. They say, hey, we got work for you. Whenever you're available, hit us up. And it's tough for a guy like him to want to go back into that life, knowing that he don't want to go back to the joint, and he don't want to be buried 6 feet deep. And the changing moment was his interactions with Fruit, and how he could have put a bullet in his dome right there while he saw him on the ground.
Right.
He elected not to, because he looked at the kid on the ground next to him that was shot, and that was like a reflection of, this is what put me behind bars, or this is what I used to do. And I'm like, I just can't put myself to pull the trigger and kill another person after seeing that, and that was like this whole change, like he realized that the game ain't in me no more. I can't do this, because if I do this, I'm just going right back down that path where it put me in prison, and I might not go to prison. I might end up being dead just like this kid next to me. So that to me, that moment where he could have killed Fruit but didn't, was the changing moment for him as a character, that said that I can't do this no more.
Absolutely. That seemed to be the moment for sure.
I think if you're looking at important moments for Cuddy, I think that is the big moment where he realizes, like, the two paths, like you were saying, Sean, about, I could go straight or I could go back into the life. So you've got the moment where he realizes he doesn't want this anymore. And then I think one of my favorite moments is when he has this conversation here from the meme with Avon. It's a pretty important revelation, I think, for Avon too, because that's not something people really get to do, I don't think, as criminals, to just go up to their boss and be like, you know what, I'm good. I'm good. Like, I'm just gonna go be normal again. Like, I tried this out. I'm not cut out for this. Usually, at least in The Sopranos, if you try to do that, the easier, cleaner way is to just kill the guy and then you're done with it. I feel like that's what Stringer Bell would have done. But Avon had a nice kind of humanizing moment and just let him go, And
right? Yeah.
It was pretty defining, I think, for both of them.
And another thing was that he had 3 important people when he got out the joint that helped him see that path. You had his ex-girlfriend, or his friend. She was one that put him on the path to meet the pastor.
The teacher who we later see with Presbo, right?
Yeah. And then you got the pastor, of course, played by the former Melvin. Name is escaping me, but yeah, he was the one that the show is based on, especially the Barksdales.
The real Barksdale, yeah.
Yeah, the real Barksdale. And he was phenomenal in this show. Whatever scene he showed up in, I thought he played it perfectly. And then he had the man who ran the lawnmower business. He was also in his ear, giving him knowledge. Because even he predicted that he might go back to the streets.
And he even offered him, like, hey, we could get 2 trucks. I could split this business with you. I could share this with you, because he saw something in him that, like, maybe there's something there.
So, when you had those 3, giving him information, telling him that he can change, it's battling out the going back to that old lifestyle, you know. And when he saw that moment with Fruit and the kid, he's like, I can do this other path. I can take this other path and avoid the street stuff. And the whole thing with Avon saw that, and that's why when Avon said Slim Charles said he was a man of his time, Avon said he's a man now. Because it takes a man to come out and say the game ain't in me no more. And Avon saw that and he respected that. Whereas if he told that to Marlo, he would have been in the vacants.
Oh, absolutely. And Avon also has the same attitude when he comes asking for money, where it's like, I don't know, I want to. And then he finds out how much money. He's like, shit, that's all you needed? Like, come on, man, I got that. Give this guy, and he doubles it or whatever. He gives him a ton more than he needed. But it's like that. He's like, I don't need no picture hanging. I don't need no signs with my name. But they ended up hanging that picture of Avon anyways.
Hell, that picture is the one that came back to bite Avon in the first season.
From the other gym, right? Yeah. So I feel like Avon is a huge part of Dennis being able to like succeed through his change, and it feels both out of character and yet perfectly Avon that he would understand and then help somebody do that.
Yeah. And that shows the stark difference between him and Marlo. You know, Avon still felt human.
Yeah.
You know, he was a gangster, but he still felt human, whereas Marlo was a monster.
So let's see. We got some chatter going on here. I want to make sure we say hello, everybody. Simon R came by. Thank you for appreciating it. Unruly's throwing out some Pearl Jam music quotes. Changed, but not changing at all. Yeah, man. That's the trick of it. 13 years is a good minute. So what I'm hearing is I need to watch The Wire. Yes, Rob Boswell. If anything we can convince you of, it's
watch The Wire.
Don't watch this show. Go watch The Wire and then come back and watch this when you're done.
Yep.
That would be the highlight for you. Not my favorite show. It's on the short list, but probably the best show I've ever seen. That's an interesting sort of separation there. So I'm going to move us on to our next person, because I have a feeling this is going to be one of our longer shows just because of the final slides that we have here. But we've got, and I had to copy and paste this to make sure I spelled it right. Roland Presbalewski. No one wins. One side just loses more slowly.
That's such a great quote. Because
it's so powerful and yet wonderfully connects to him as well, right?
Yeah. You know, because in each situation that he's in, he just sees that it's hard to win. That, you know, it's like slowly, even if you get a victory, it still comes a loss with it.
Right.
And the introduction of Prez is funny because we first find out that, you know, he's a klutz. You know, the man shot up his own car. You know, he shoots a gun in the station that they're in the wall. And everybody's like, this guy's a freaking klutz. You know,
wasn't it just like, hey guys, check out the trigger on my gun? Like this, like something.
Like, what are you doing though? And you know, you find out that the only reason he got a job is because of Valchek. You know, he's married to Valchek's daughter, or getting ready to get married to Valchek's daughter. So, you know, Valchek pulled some strings and got him, you know, the position that he's in. And he does things that's, for a man of his intelligence, you would question why would it even come through your mind to do that. And the thing that sticks out the most is the high tower scene with him, Carver, and Hurt, you know, going in to mess with people in the high rises. And then he's going to do something as stupid as hit a young teenager with the butt of his gun in the face. And right there, you immediately say, all right, he's one of those cops that he's going to do some stupid shit, you know, and fuck himself up in the police department. Because we all know the police takes major hits and they still try and cover it up. Just like Daniels did for him, you know, telling him that story. So right there, you like, man, I don't like this guy, man. He's a klutz. You know, he does some dumb stuff. He's gonna hit a kid with the butt of a gun, so automatically he's on your shit list. But as the series goes on, especially in season 1, you start to realize that he may be a klutz, but he has an intelligence about him. When Freeman found out that he knows he's good with numbers, and he was the one that was actually able to figure out the phone code. They jumped to 5 and all. He realized that he's good as an office guy, doing the research, paperwork, looking up the information on the Barksdale money, and that leads to Clay Davis and stuff. So in that regards, he's good in-house when it comes to research and investigation. And you see him as he grows, that when season 2 come along, he knows that he needs Freeman and them to help him on this case with the docs. Because he can't do them by himself. He needs good police work.
That bit when I think it's season 2, when he redoes the board and he's listening to Johnny Cash and he's going around and he's moving this piece over here and he's drawing all these great connections, is one of my favorite Presbo moments, because you see that he's learned enough from Freeman to be able to do what they were doing in season 1 on his own now.
Exactly. He was able to learn all that by, putting the board together on his own, and then saying, all I need is the right people with me, and we can do this case, whether it's investigation, whether it's, street work, whether it's going and doing the paperwork. He knows how to do that, and that's what made him special. What messed him up in season 2 was his father-in-law. He came in saying, where's the whole deal with the docs? And he was like, I put my faith in you, and I put my faith in these other police officers, and you're going to do me dirty. So Valchek is going to act like an idiot and push Prez around. And I don't blame Prez for what he did, because I'm like, Valchek's a jerk. He's going around acting like this big pissant, just talking all this nonsense about Prez. And yeah, he thinking Prez is a klutz, but the boy actually is intelligent, and he knows what he's doing when it comes to investigation stuff. So when he's pushing out Prez is like, nah, and he punched him in the face.
Yeah.
And it's like, I went from hating this guy in season 1 to saying, yo, Prez, that's a good job, man. Fuck Valchek, man.
But I think that's one of the things the show always has like excelled at is subverting expectations, right? Like, you think the hero cop of McNulty is going to be this guy that you root for, and you're so quickly ashamed of feeling that way. And Presbo is the other way around. He's somebody that you feel like, I'm just going to hate this guy, and then he becomes so beautifully redeemed.
Yeah. And
I think that was one of my favorite surprises of the whole show, actually, because when it starts out and he's the dumb guy who shoots the wall, and then little by little you start to see, like, okay, he's the dumb guy who's pretty good at his job. I guess I could deal with that, and he's a good part of the team. He's not my favorite, but he's useful. And then they bring him in a couple seasons later out of nowhere with the school kids, and it's like, oh well, damn, this guy is now like one of my favorites. Like, it just completely came out of nowhere. It was a great surprise, I thought.
And Sam, I am saying Prez certainly realizes he can only work in the office and not out in the streets. And that was so true when it came to season 3. Because what happened to him in season 3 shows that he was out of his element when it came to being on the streets. And by that point, you felt sorry for him. You wasn't angry like you was in season 1 with him. You felt sorry for him, because even if he didn't follow protocol by announcing himself as a police, he wasn't used to that situation, and he reacted on his own accord without actually adjusting to the situation and letting himself know that, hey, I'm police. He just shot randomly. And in the end of the life, a police life, and you could just see the guilt all over his face, and he knew he was finished. And Freeman saw it, Daniel saw it, and it sucked seeing that happen to him, because you saw his worth to the team, in terms of office work, in terms of investigation and stuff. You saw his worth to the team, and for him to get put out like that, it did feel kind of sad to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was one of the moments that kind of stung to watch again, like right now specifically. I thought watching the downfall of Perez's police career was extremely it was eye-opening in a way, because it makes you think about all the stuff that's going on in the real world right now, like how there's different sides, I guess, to every encounter. But there really was no other way for his trajectory to go, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's why, when Daniels tried to, help him with it, Perez was like, I can't accept that. No, this is on me. And, he accepted his fate. That's one thing I liked about it, that this time whereas the first time he was looking for an escape, this time he's like, nah, there is no escape.
So then let's talk about his ultimate redemption as a character, because as a teacher, watching him, I mean, he's not good at the job at the beginning. Yet again, you get to see Prez in a position where he looks like he's going to fail, but using his people skills and his intelligence kind of rises up, right?
Anybody that's going to enter the school field, it's not going to be successful right off the bat. It's a whole new field. You got to deal with young teenagers, which is a challenge. And and he came in there. It was tough for him, but you saw as the episodes go on, he slowly started to develop a relationship with some of them kids. And it was mainly the two, Daquan and Randy. Those were the two that he started to have a little relationship with, especially Daquan. He saw the importance of Daquan, and how he's actually pretty intelligent, despite how he looks and what he's go through in life. And he helped Daquan. He said, "Man, I'll wash your clothes for you. Put them in the locker. When you get here, you can shower and stuff like that." So I know the lady told him that, you're not supposed to be doing that. You're not the father to these kids and stuff like that. But he knows that these kids are going through a lot. They're being on the corner. They're, dealing with people in their own homes that's mistreating them badly. So he's trying to do his best to help out, while also educating them. Because he sees that Daquan is good on the computers. He's good at doing certain things on it. And he's like, you always want to accelerate somebody's potential. And that's what he was trying to do with Daquan, because he knows Daquan has potential. And even Randy, to a certain degree, even if Randy had that seller's mentality, go ahead.
Well, I think he also gets a real insight into what these kids are dealing with outside. When they talk about, oh, there was this dead kid in my backyard they found the other day, or you can't give it to him, his mom will just take it and sell it. And he starts seeing the home life affect the kid, and how those kids are going through some very challenging things. And I think he gains a different respect that he had when he was a cop, when he was like, all he saw were corner kids. He couldn't imagine that there was anything else to them but that.
And the challenging part was when that girl got sliced in the face, and all the kids, the next day, they just took it as a normal thing. They didn't really have no emotion to it. But for him, that was like, man, this is crazy. She got sliced in the face. She could die from this. But, them kids are used to that. They used to seeing stuff like that happening, whether it's in the streets or whether it's in school. And that kind of took him aback. But he realized that he can't really push it like he can, because he's not a cop, and that he can only go so far when it comes to these kids. He don't want to really push anything onto them, because then it'll get a negative reaction.
Right.
And like I said, with Randy, he knows that Randy has this little, seller's mentality where he knows how to sell things, but he does it in wrong ways. But he sees the potential in these. He sees potential in Michael. He knows Michael is smart. He just don't want to show it. And there's a lot of things that Prez was focused on trying to help these kids out because he knows both sides of the equation. He knows that the education system is struggling, but he knows that these kids are struggling as well because of the street side, and he's trying to make that argument that these kids need proper education, and he sees that through his teachings of certain math questions and stuff like that, and he actually starts to really get with them before the school system come and shut it down, saying just focus on the tests. And that through he was starting to make a connection with the kids until that.
Right. And then all of a sudden he had to teach questions that were just so ridiculous, right? That the kids couldn't get anything out of it. It was a waste of everybody's time.
Yeah. It's crazy, and that's where I really start to have an appreciation for Prez, him looking out for his kids, like the whole thing with Randy and when Bunkdom came. Yeah, I'm looking out for the kids. That's why I'm trying to make sure, because they're tied to this classroom, and I don't want nothing happening to them. And that's why it was so disappointing with what Herc was doing with Randy.
Absolutely.
And
Freeman got it. Freeman was like, "I'm going to let you go. You've got a nice little thing going here, and I'm not going to press this."
Yeah, Bunk was kind of pressing it, but Freeman was like,
and Herc was like. He was the reason Presbo was feeling like this isn't going to work, and then Herc proved his point, right?
Yeah.
Ryan, did you want to say stuff about Prez? Or sorry, Sean, did you have more to say about Prez?
No, I want to hear Ryan.
I just think something about Prez. I'm sitting here wondering why season 4 is my favorite. Thinking about the things I'm about to start talking about, and then how it ties in with Presbo himself, and just I don't know what it is, but that one fifth of the show just kind of stands that much farther above the rest of it, and I think it's got a lot to do with Pryzbylewski himself. Honestly, I think his journey is kind of crystallized in that season. You see him kind of go through the transformation with all the kids, and then by the time you see him sporadically in the final season, you kind of get this, the scene when Dookie comes to him and asks him for some money is tragic, really. I don't know. Is that the last time we see Presbo? I can't remember.
I think we see him in the montage, and we see him in the class, but I don't think we see him significantly in season 5 or anything.
There's a point in that scene where Duquan showed up at the school that shows how far Prez came. He was able to handle a little school fight outside, and he was able to handle that with ease and sternness, whereas early in his school run, he was new to it, so he couldn't really handle it the way that he could. There, he was established. Prez had established himself as a good school teacher, that he can just defuse fights and even tell kids that, hey, go home if you don't want to be in detention on that. So that right there showed that he was able to establish himself as a good school teacher.
Yep, absolutely. And he starts to mirror the lady who was Cuddy's ex-girlfriend, and some of the things that she does when she comes into a room and when she talks to the kids. He's finding his own way to sort of do what she does really well.
Yep. But Prez as a character, from season 1 to season 5, has grown tremendously. From the biggest negative moment at the high rises in season 1 to what he did in season 5 with diffusing that little fight. It just shows you how he evolved as a character. He didn't stay stuck in the rut and to be the same character. He grown, from dealing with the police and dealing with office work and research and investigation to actually dealing with kids, test questions, and how to manage their egos of a child. That shows you how much he grew as a character, and that's why I felt this was the perfect episode to talk about him, to focus on him a lot.
For sure. Which segues nicely. I've got I tried to find the GIF where she says, "You tell him because I ain't even going to try." Which Love that lady. She nails that line.
That is a really hard one to spell. That's
Oh
like
my God.
all Y's and Z's.
There's a lot of consonants, unless you count Y sometimes. But that leaves us into the Stoop and Corner kids. And Ryan was going to sort of lead us through a discussion here on some of the Stoop and Corner kids, because I feel like evolution is easy to see with kids because their span of time is so much shorter.
It's easy, and it's a little more difficult, I want to say, with the kids, because they're introduced in the fourth season of a 5-season series, so you don't get to spend as much time with them like you do with Prez, for example, like over the course of the whole show. You kind of get like condensed microcosm evolution examples with the 4 of these kids, but they're pretty much like the beating heart of the final season. Maybe even for me anyway, like a lot of the weight of the final couple of episodes comes from seeing how these 4 kids kind of settle at the end of the show. But let me just see from this picture here, from left to right, you've got Duquan, you've got Randy here, Michael, and then Namond on the far right, who's living it up at school as always.
He's in his space, where he gets to shine a little bit.
He's in his element, and it's hard to even think about where to begin with these kids. But as far as evolution goes, seeing where they begin and where they end, I guess Namond kind of stands out in a way, because he's one of actually the only characters, I want to say, in the whole show that ends better than where they start.
Dramatically so, right?
Yeah, he might have like the best resolution, maybe. I mean, it's trying to think of other people now, but as far as where they came from and where their life was looking like it was going to go before, you get set on a different path. But he gets the part of the fun with Namond, I think, is getting to see firsthand how a lot of the street life is acting, and how you have to front and just pretend to be a lot more of a hard kind of personality than you really are. And unless you actually have that, you can't really fake it. So he tries a lot. Like most of the time that we know Namond, he's a little poser. You can pretty much see right through him. And Michael, the guy he's shaking hands with right there, he's actually a little gangster. He's actually hard, and he sees right through Namond, and their interactions throughout the final 2 seasons are some of my favorites, I want to say, at the gym, especially with Cuddy.
Right. Which actually, that's the one of the gifts I found was friendly. This is Michael talking about Cuddy, actually, right? And
yeah,
it's funny how all 3 of our choices connect with with these kids.
Mm-hmm.
Prez and then Cuddy. He all had dealings with the kids.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't. It's hard for me personally to like pick a favorite, for example, out of the 4 of these kids. I think they're all.
If you're trying to pick your favorite as far as the evolution, then it has to be Namond, because the other 3 end so tragically. Like they end so devastatingly.
Especially Duquan. Like,
right.
I was just gonna say Duquan might be my favorite because of that. I think. Through years of storytelling and fairy tale kind of endings, we're kind of trained to believe that Duquan something's gonna happen to him, like maybe Presbo is gonna adopt him or whatever, and he's gonna live like a Namond-esque kind of happy ending life. But Duquan starts at the bottom, and he ends up more on the bottom than he started. He goes down, and he didn't start very high either. So.
Which I think, Jason brings up that idea of devolving versus evolving. And I think you could consider that the other 3 go through a de-evolution, right?
Yeah. Michael, I would say he just evolved into a more street hardened character, whereas, he didn't have any trust in anybody outside of his friends, and he was shy, but at the same time, he had a presence about him. And as the 2 seasons go on, you just see him evolve into this more ruthless, semi-ruthless character, with his gun skills, and the whole thing with him on the range shooting guns with Duquan and stuff. Like, he really showed that if he needs to get dirty, he can get dirty. Where Daquan, when he wanted to get a gun and learn how to shoot, it's not in him. You know, Michael had that evolution of how to be that street character that knows how to survive, and that's why he became the next Omar in there, because he knew how to survive in that street corner.
Which is an interesting thing, because the first time I watched the show, and I this is my favorite season, that fourth season, getting to see the kids, and it's probably just because of my occupation, but I was really interested in these kids, and I found myself thinking the whole time along, is he going to be the next Stringer, or is he going to be the next Omar? Is he going to be the next Bubbles? Whatever. Like, I found myself thinking that, and it didn't necessarily work out the way I thought it was going to when you first start watching it. Although maybe you could have pegged the Daquan into Bubbles' journey a little earlier than some of the others. But I think, did either of you guys find yourselves kind of like, oh, I hope this guy ends up more like a X as opposed to a Z?
I kind of saw Randy when he was doing his little business thing, that he was like, he had a little prop Joe in him,
right?
You know, and doing businesses and how to sell candy and stuff like that. Change his shirts for each lunchroom class. He changed shirts, you know, to go on different lunches and stuff. So
be like Stringer in the sense that he has like the clothes. He goes to school. He goes to the Xerox shop. He goes.
Yeah, it was like a little bit of prop Joe and a little bit of Stringer put together. And
did you guys happen to see? I don't know. I assume they were on the DVDs. I haven't watched these shows on DVDs before, but on YouTube I found a couple of clips that were like, I assume they were bonus features, but there was like a flashback of childhood Proposition Joe.
Yeah, I seen that, the Omar, and
it's not good. I didn't think it was very good, and I think the scenes, the fact that they put these kids in here as a much better way to examine how people can grow into this life of crime without having to show us a really poorly done flashback of like Lil Prop Joe and a little Omar in high school. Or like, we could have gotten like a really bad, you know, prequel season of The Wire or something like that. So I think this was a really inspired way to show you how people become like that without showing us too directly, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you see Michael becoming? I know that Sean mentioned Omar, and I think it's pretty clear you could definitely see that. Do you think it's possible there's any other trajectory for Michael besides the Omar path?
If a few things had gone differently, I'm not sure what that path would be.
Like a Marlowe, for me, I could see him, you know, taking over some turf and just deciding to go that route.
Is it only a criminal path that you think a kid like that could go down? Or, I mean,
Mike, I'm saying at the point when we finish the show.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you imagine him becoming an Omar or a Marlowe or a Cuddy or whatever?
I thought that if he didn't have that bad issue with his stepdad and had more of an open mindset, that he could have learned from Cuddy. You know, because Cuddy experienced the street life and he did jail time, so he could have learned from Cuddy, especially with the boxing, because he knew how to box. He was going there just to show off, you know, that I can fight without actually doing the training. You know, he just wanted to go there and do it himself.
Right.
So I felt that if he didn't have that hesitance with people around him, especially somebody like Cuddy, who was, you know, dealing with a lot of the kids' mothers and stuff like that, and you know that was an issue with him, and just Cuddy's friendliness, I felt like if he would have at least followed Cuddy's path and learned from him in boxing, he could have been a good boxer.
Or I mean, go ahead, Ryan. You were going to say something. Sorry.
He's just got daddy issues.
That was the main thing.
Stepdaddy issues, maybe, I guess, but he's clearly got a lack of a father figure in his life, and it eventually ended up becoming Chris. You know, kind of stepped in to fill that void of a male influence in his life, and it could have been somebody like Cuddy, you know, a more positive influence that maybe would have steered him in a better direction, but he ended up getting mixed in with the streets, and you know, we see how it ended.
It reminded me too of season 1, Wallace, who's caring for all the kids and making sure they got their lunches. The way he's taking care of Bug, you get that sense that Michael has in him kindness and compassion and really does want to do all of what he's doing, or at least a significant portion, for Bug. Like I get the sense that come a Cuddy or whatever, and could end up there still, but he's going to need change thrust upon him. I feel like maybe that's the reality of this universe, is that change doesn't happen by accident. Change happens when it's like you're forced to change.
And that was another sad scene in season 5, is when he had to part with his younger brother. That was because he knew that he can't have him around him. If he's gonna go head on into this robbery life, he don't want his brother to be around him, to be a part of that, because he'll be put in danger. So that was sad to watch, separation of brothers.
That 1-2 punch, I think the scene weren't they back to back when him and Duquan went and dropped off Bug, and then Michael dropped off Duquan.
Yeah,
and it's like that. I think right there is, for me, the lowest point of the whole show. Like, that's the most bleak, depressing, unoptimistic portion of the entire game. The entire thing.
You're seeing 2 of these 4 kids both turning towards a path that is not going to be a positive evolution for either one of them.
Yeah.
We didn't really talk about Randy much. Did you guys have any, Ryan, did you have any thoughts on Randy?
Randy grew on me the more times I watched the show, because he's, for me anyway, out of the 4, he's the one that kind of falls through the cracks in my mind. Like, I focus a lot on all 3 of the other ones, and then Randy is always kind of, for me, the afterthought in a really sad way. But his story is wrapped up almost a little too, I don't want to say cleanly, because it's not necessarily clean, but it just finishes, and then he gets put away in a little box and kind of just forgotten. And that's really kind of what happens to the man himself, in a way. Put away in a group home, and just in an environment like that, like you kind of have to sink or swim. So he swims. I like that we got to see a little follow up with him in the final season, where he's
right
that much older in such a short span of time. Like, it's really heartbreaking.
Yeah,
Carver in the car was kind of the end of Randy's story in a significant way. Just watching Carver lose his shit in the car,
Yeah, like I said it before. Like, Randy is like, he's a tale of 2 stories. One is the whole murder of Fruit. Well, not Fruit, but the murder of Fruit, and then him making decisions that he should have never made. He should have never brought up he knew a murder to the principal. Like, that's not an exit sign that's going to get you to the promised land. Like that, you're putting yourself more in trouble than you already are in. So, like, he shot himself in the foot on that, and then the system failed him on the other side.
Which snowballed from him deciding to be the lookout for 3 guys taking a girl in the bathroom. Was like, he decided to be the lookout. He got caught and he got wrapped up in it, and then it was like,
and then you're gonna throw a murder out there, and like, what point did that come out your mouth to get out of this situation that didn't even involve it? You know what I mean? And then later found out that the girl lied, so it's like, you lied for nothing. You pretty much told them that a murder for something that was a lie. So he did himself in on that point, and then the system did him even worse afterwards.
I like that as a way to look at the way that school, they talk about it later through Bunny, through Colvin, and the whole side class that he does. But I think that whole experience with Randy and the murder and the confession and all that is a good way to look at how the school system is kind of like prepping a lot of these kids for the life on the streets, and in encounters with police and authority, and like you know, you got to snitch or you're going to get in trouble. Like, you know, it's just teaching these kids how to live life on the street, not in a good way.
Right. So as far as the evolution of these kids goes, are we basically saying that only one of these kids evolved and that the other three devolved? Is that basically the gist of it? Hey, Al. Sorry, Al.
What's up, Al?
We are
one
all
evolved
awake,
to.
we're all awake. Nobody's sleeping.
I am not asleep. One evolved to a positive status, you know, in naming. One evolved negatively, but if you're gonna go on that street life, you have to evolve to that. The other two devolve. That's how I look at it. You know, we could say Michael devolved, but I see the evolution of being that street life. You know, he evolved from just being a corner kid to now being a robber and knowing how to use guns. That was he evolved. Yeah, stick up man. So we don't see it as an evolvement, but for him, it's evolvement. You know, he evolved. Yeah. The other two, they went backwards, especially Duquan, because he had so much potential, and you know his de-evolution was just sad and depressing to watch. You know,
for sure.
You know, and like I said with Randy is that he could have did things to avoid that situation, and he put himself in that position to fall down that rabbit hole of being in a group home. So it's sad, you know. It really is sad.
Absolutely. Ryan, you agree with that? Basically, that's our premise here.
Yeah, I feel like out of all of them, Naaman's the only one who doesn't put like a big question mark on his life expectancy in a really weird way. Like I could see Duquan not making it, you know, 5-10 more years after where we left off with him.
Oh, and sure.
The odds on the other two, on Randy and Michael, are a little better because they're at least, you know, self-sufficient and they can protect themselves and they're tough, but they're also living the hard life, so they could go at any moment. But I think Naaman is the only one that ends up with any semblance of a stable life.
Right.
And Naaman was so fortunate to have Bunny Colvin. Because
I wanted to get to this idea. Sorry, we'll jump out of the kids to this other idea. The idea that, like, to change, do you need to have mentors guiding you? Because you were going to mention Bunny, and I wanted you to talk about Bunny, because Bunny is a mentor and a guide to several characters who evolve.
Yep, he was a mentor to Carver, which is how we saw him evolve. To be honest, he even mentored McNulty for a bit. You know, like the scene we saw him and McNulty. You know, they had a
old bushy top.
Bushy top. You know, they had a bond that, you know, that they understood. And then you have Naaman and all the kids in that room. Like he really truly wanted to help these kids out, you know, with that program. And you know, when he got with Naaman and he saw his situation with his devil of a mother, you know, and he's like, he's not built for these streets. He's not in the right mind frame at home. When you got a mother like that, he's not going to make it, you know. And that, like I said before, that conversation with Wee-Bey is one of the most powerful scenes in the show, because even a gangster realized that my son ain't built for these streets, and I got a policeman here saying I can take your son out of the streets and put him in a better position in life. And you know, it takes guts for somebody like Wee-Bey to give his son up to an ex-policeman.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah, you know, like when you really watch that scene, it's like they know each other from the old days of the corners, and you know, you see that Wee-Bey at least have respect. You know, nobody likes the police, but he respects him because he was able to come to him straight up and just throw a proposal out there. And the conversation was so deep that when he told Naaman's mother that he's gone, he was stunned about it, and she had to let it go. because she wasn't doing Naaman no favors. She was spoiling him, putting all these things in his mind like he needs to be like his daddy and represent. And Naaman was like, I ain't got that. Like Ryan said earlier, he's a poser. He's not a true street guy. He's not a street kid. He can't go. He tries to act tough, but then he cries when he loses.
I still think Naaman's mom is like one of the purest forms of evil in this show. She's the Dragon Lady. She's like, there's few people I think who are just as despicable and just evil as she is in this universe. That's my 2 cents on Mrs.
You
Bryce.
are totally right. I think at least I'm laughing because I totally agree. She has no redeeming quality at all. None that we see, at least.
It's a pretty gray universe in The Wire, but she's a black character. There's black and white people and gray, mostly gray, but she's a dark one.
Yeah.
And when you don't have that parent figure that helps you instead of just want to demean you, like when she said, you're afraid to go to baby jail, and she just completely tears into him. It's like, I felt sorry when he went back in that house because I'm like, I know he's about to get the verbal lashing. And he's gonna go up in his room and cry because you go through that life with a parent that's so demeaning to you. It's like, what can I do to please her?
Nothing. Yeah. Well, so then I mean, you look at all of our characters who evolve. It seems like all of them have mentors that make that possible.
Right? Duquan had Prez Belusky. That was right there in that fourth season.
Espo had people backing him up, and Cuddy, we mentioned people having. So it feels like change in the Wire universe, at least, and probably in life, seems to only be happening when people are affecting that change with aid.
Yeah.
Does that seem accurate?
Yeah, I'm going through a list of people in my head and trying to think of anybody who maybe.
I wanted to get to Carver because. Sean had some great comments about Carver in our Instagram chat because at first it was like, well, Carver has to be one of the people. And then Sean, you said something about the fact that he's not evolving because he is sort of like time traveling to an older age of police officer, mirroring what Bunny was saying. I'm trying to summarize, but you could probably say it better.
Bunny taught Carver, it was mainly season 3. And that's where Carver had like an awakening for himself, where he really needs to, because Bunny was getting on Carver for not having an informant and, not doing the police work proper. So Bunny was always giving Carver these lectures. But then, it was the bottle scene that Carver really started to pay attention to Bunny, and then him backing up Bunny on the Amsterdam thing. He's like, it may be a crazy idea, but I'm not going to screw my boss over. And he's helped me out, give me advice. So I'm going to return that favor, And that's where Carver realized that I can't be the old person that I used to be. Even in season 4, when he knew those corner kids, he I don't need to chase them. I know where they stay at. So
Which
I'm
is
just
a great moment, right? Yeah, it's a great. He has learned a ton because from the previous season when he's like, I will catch you and I'll beat you harder than you beat your own dick. He's chasing those kids through every alleyway. He's jumping off. And they got the Shaft music playing in Herc's car, and he's running.
Yeah.
It's like from there to the guy who says, I'm just going to catch them later. I know exactly where these kids are going to be. That's a powerful growth.
Exactly. And he just casually walk up on them and talk to them. It wasn't like he had to beat them up or, put them in handcuffs. No, he just went up to them and casually talked to them and tell them what his rules were. And that shows growth, because if it was old Carver, he would have ran up in his car and, and started wanting to beat some heads and stuff. But he grown from that first season and said, I'm just going to walk up because I know where y'all stay at.
Well, and that I feel like that's another thing the show does, and maybe Ryan can chime in on some of this too, which is that it seems like the people who get connected to the street corner kids, the stoop and corner kids, are the ones that know them well And you know, like I love the bit when Bunny's trying to talk in the auditorium with all the kids, and they're just breaking into little. And that one teacher comes out. And she said, "Did you go?" She's like, she knows all of them, and she's like,
Yep.
"Your mama didn't raise no dummy, did she? You know, your mama didn't." And like she can talk. She's like, "I'll talk to your mom later if you keep." You know, you can see she knows everybody's family situation. And I think Presbro grows to that space. Carver grows into that space. I think even McNulty, when he was walking the beat in season, was it 3? 4? He got to that place where he knew he was talking to the ladies, and then they were watering their flowers, and he's walking down the street. He knew people's names. He knew them.
I'm trying to think if I'm thinking about Herc right now for some reason.
Sure.
And is he the only one that doesn't really evolve? Am I wrong in that one? Like, I feel like he's changed jobs, but he doesn't really seem to have any kind of epiphany or, you know, development in any real way. He snatches the phone number.
When you see him in season 1, you see him in season 5, he's exactly the same character with no growth.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else that doesn't really seem to go through a change like that. But
I mean, I would argue that like the whole discussion on addiction proved that, for me at least, that McNulty has not evolved. And that McNulty is McNulty. And he may try to get straight for a little while, but he's going to fall right back into the old McNulty. And he doesn't seem to be someone that has, for me, and again, I clearly have people that disagree, because I watched that video where that lady was like, "Oh, he has the greatest redemption arc," and you know, I was like, "That's just bullshit." He is still freaking McNulty at the end, and just absolutely he's just one shot of Jameson away from being back to what he was. So I would put him with Carver in that way, or sorry, with Herc that way.
Yeah, because I'm thinking Bunk he stayed the same. He never really changed, but you know, he just did police work. You know, he didn't have to change anything. He did good police work. And even in season 5, when the whole homeless thing was going on, he said, "I'm going to work my cases and I'm going to solve them the right way." So Bunk, from the beginning to the end, was all about trying to solve the case and do police work the right way, even if he got wasted a couple of times.
Hey, we're talking about growth and change, and we're sticking mainly to the kids and to the police officers. Do the guys working the street corners and selling the drugs, do they evolve at all?
I was just going to say, Jason's got me thinking about Bodie here.
Yeah, because I feel like that's a great discussion. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Jason. I don't know, man. The more times I watch this show, like the more Bodie climbs up my list of favorite characters, and he's got to be up there for me in like top 3 somewhere. If I actually had to sit down and think about who I love the most on this show, like I think Bodie's journey, especially, he definitely, I would say, evolves over the 4 seasons that he's alive for.
And Bodie's one of those characters that you think you would hate for life for what he did with Wallace. You know, like he's showing his loyalty to the Barksdale crew and wanting to take out Wallace, and they've been friends for life. You know, like that's your best friend. You know, You eat, you hang together with him, but you continue to watch this show and you realize that this character is starting to grow on you, and even mature. You know, he gets that mature treatment to the point where he's not the same character that he was in the first season, where he was being very rash and out of control. He knew how to talk to the police. Like the whole thing in Amsterdam, he was able to get McNulty to agree with him on certain things that they said, yeah, we popped him on the drugs, but they were heading to Amsterdam, and he's got a clean bill immunity from the cops because of that. And you know, Perlman looked at it like, damn, so we gotta let him go, and they had to let him go. So he knew how to handle himself in that situation. So that showed his growth.
And when he said entrapment, right? Is that talking about the same thing?
Yeah, the entrapment.
Yeah. I don't know if you could say that like Stringer or Avon really evolved all that much.
I got the feeling that Stringer was trying to change the way they did business and trying to evolve outside of the system and go to straight, legitimate real estate holdings and things, but that the system was not going to allow him to get away with that. So the system forced him back into the old form. And I think you could argue the same on the politics side for Carcetti, trying to do this and trying to be an agent of change, and then the system forcing him into the mold of every mayor that's probably been ahead of him. So for me, Stringer tries, I think, to change.
It's hard to change a broken system when, there's obstacles that just changes everything that you want to change. You want to throw a change in, here comes an obstacle. It derails you and forces you to go into another direction. You go into that other direction thinking, okay, maybe I have a chance to change this. Bam, another obstacle pops up. So you got to go in another direction. And it just goes, it's like you getting directed in different directions and there's no end to it. It's hard to change something when there's so many obstacles diverting you into another direction. And each time you get diverted to a new direction, it's like you go backwards on other things. You're not evolving. You're devolving because you're falling back into the same traps that previous mayors fell on.
It's also reminding me of Frank Sabatka and the port, and like trying to change the way that you're doing your kind of shady smuggling operations at the union on the port, and he's trying to switch the way things are done over there. But again, there's so many status quo kind of obstacles in his way, and the people around him don't really want to change the way that they're doing things. And the show itself, I guess, has a good examination of structures like that and how they can block and prevent change from happening. I think is maybe one of the overall messages of the show.
You really need unity and strong support to try and force change. It's hard to change something by yourself or just with a few people when there's so many obstacles and so many people in your way. You need a huge amount of backing to try and force change, because without it, then you're pretty much a lost cause.
So this discussion reminds me a little bit of I had a talk with a friend about Requiem for a Dream. He's a big Aronofsky fan, and that's a powerful, heavy film about addiction. And we were discussing the whole point of the movie. Like, is this movie totally pointless? Is it just like endless suffering? And he said that the film follows the basic hero structure if you look at the hero as addiction. If the hero of the story is addiction, it follows the journey of the hero achieving their ends. It's an ode to addiction, and the addiction wins, right? And in that same way, you could argue, I think, maybe that The Wire is an ode to sort of systemic status quo, right? Like that you can't change the system. That even all the different ways in which a system functions is by an inability to change it, right? And so that maybe this is all a sort of swan song or an ode to systemic challenges.
I will agree with that, because you hear the term status quo and you always hear return the status quo. You try and make this change, but then something happens and then you return to that same status quo that it was previous. And that's how it was when it came to the police. They always juked the stacks. They always did things to make sure that they pleased the mayor. A new mayor comes in, wants change, obstacles coming his way. Then he says, well, now I got to juke the stats because these obstacles are denying me my change. So now I got to go back to the previous way. So it's return to the status quo. And when you got a commander in Daniels that's saying, I don't want to do that. I want that change that you said, that you promised we was going to have. Now you got to get rid of him and then get somebody that's going to return to the status quo. It's tough, man. It's tough to make changes when there's always these obstacles that pop up and force you back to the old ways.
Absolutely. What do you think about that, Ryan? Sorry, it was a big idea. I know.
Now I don't know. It doesn't feel like there's any other way to kind of encapsulate this whole show. It feels like the biggest way to kind of summarize it. I guess it's a hard show to describe, or to to give a synopsis for. Like, it's a show about a city and like structures.
Well, that's what I mean. Sean said, I think, right off the bat, is that the main character is Baltimore. Like the other characters are all secondary to that, and the systems that make it function.
And that's what makes this show so unique, is that many shows focus on the characters, but this show, it focuses on everything and all the aspects of the city, from the school system, the police, the criminal side, the lawyer side, what they deal with, and politics. It focuses on everything. And you're not going to have a show that focuses on that many establishments within a city. We're not going to have that type of show again.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I would argue that it's totally possible. I just think it's very challenging. I think you need the right city and you need the right creators. I mean, with these two gentlemen, a police officer turned teacher and a journalist turned film writer and movie writer, I think you had the two perfect people, both coming from the same city, knowing it from so many aspects, that could do it.
Yeah, but like I said, it's a reason why The Wire was one of the lowest rated shows on HBO, is because it doesn't grab your attention. If you have to watch it and focus and to truly understand it. And for most people, they like the glamorization of something like The Sopranos, which was, that gangster show, Italian mob. It's more glamorized than something it's supposed to be a police show, but it's not really a police show. Like, the police are in it, but it's not like good guys versus bad guys. It's focusing on all sides. It's not just about the police. The
Right.
Bad guys got a story too. The politicians got a story too. The school kids got a story too. So it's encapsulating all that. And you really have to sit down and patiently watch this show.
I think that's one of the more difficult parts about being a fan of this show, is it's very hard to show to other people and say, trust me, this show is boring as hell. The first few episodes, you're not going to get it. Like, there's all these characters, and trust me, you just got to watch it. It's not something that you think, like, it's not what it feels like. You gotta give it a chance. It's not.
And I've heard that from people that say, "Oh, The Wire is boring." Not a lot of action and then nothing goes on. I'm like, bro, it's not about the action. It's not about cops chasing the bad guys and you get this action scene like you get in The Shield and stuff. No, it's about storytelling. It's about character development. It's about the establishments, what these people go through as a whole. It's much more than just your typical good guy versus bad guy. You really have to pay attention. And once you pay attention and you watch it all the way through, you have a bigger appreciation for it.
Well, and I joked when I finished watching it the first time. I joked with a lot of my family that were telling me, "Oh, did you see the new episode of NCIS or Law and Order or whatever?" And it was just like, I'm sorry, I've been ruined on cop shows. Like, I can't watch the CSI stuff anymore. Like, it's so phony. Right. I know that there's no way the Special Victims Unit in New York has like the digital whiteboard where they're going through and they're like putting up documents and doing all this stuff and bring up a map of the city and pinpoint the GPS of all. There's so many cities using reel-to-reel tape recorders for stuff. It's like this other cinema version of cop stuff just is it doesn't hold water for me anymore.
There's something really interesting and I think fascinating about David Simon, and I've tried to follow his work since The Wire. I haven't gone back and watched like Homicide or like previous stuff, which I probably should, but
Homicide is good.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to watching The Deuce. I haven't sat down and watched that yet.
Check if you haven't seen The Corner, check that out as well.
Yeah, that one. That's another one. I watched the miniseries he did with Oscar Isaac about like public housing in New York, and that was very dry in the same sense of The Wire, but it didn't have like it didn't feel as like meaningful or powerful as The Wire did, because it deals with a lot more like foundational kind of universal truths about life, and this one was more just about like discrimination, and it was a true story. It was a good miniseries, but it didn't.
That was the Oscar Isaac one, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Show Me a Hero.
Yes, I saw that. That was good.
It was pretty good. It didn't like stick with me anywhere near like what The Wire did. But I really want to check out the rest of David Simon's filmography.
I think Sean was talking to me about Treme, and I think that's how you say it, because I haven't started that one either, which is his one about music and culture of Louisiana, New Orleans.
After Katrina,
right? Yeah.
I want to watch that. I want to watch Generation Kill in Iraq with apparently Ziggy plays like a lead role in that show, so I'm excited to check that out. I don't know. He speaks to me as a writer, and I think he's got a lot of interesting things to say, and I want to check out the rest of his stuff. I'm just not good at it.
Were there any other characters for Evolution that we didn't get to? I know we kind of hit on a ton of people. I mean, Carver came up, and some of the others. Was there anybody?
Kima came to mind.
Oh yeah, Kima. We wanted to talk about Kima.
Yeah, I know we've talked about her before in terms of how she grew from season 1 to season 5, and how she became a better investigator and a cop. As we saw in season 5 when she was investigating the hell out of that homeless case that had McNulty like, I got to tell her the truth, because she was going deep into that. That just shows you how good she was as a detective. In terms of processing stuff and analyzing cases. She got it as a homicide detective. And when he saw that,
following around all those guys and the rest of that squad, seeing what those different guys on that team did, I think had that effect on her. But I think we were always worried if she was going to link and follow McNulty's pattern, or if she had a different trajectory, right?
True. And you would think at the start she was going to follow McNulty's pattern, but she didn't follow his bad habits. She just followed his strong investigation skills and how to be a detective. But she didn't have I wouldn't say bad habits, because she liked the woman just like he did, so she was going out to the bar and stuff. But she didn't in terms of doing. I
feel like she makes a turn where he went and just went head over heels into it. I think she turned away from it after.
Yes, he went back to his old ways while she kept going forward.
I'm trying to think about like anybody else, but like I'm thinking like Snoop and Chris and Marlo and like that side of the crew, and people like Cheese and Prop Joe, and like there's not a lot of evolution going on in the gang world. It seems like.
I mean, Marlo is about as unevolutionary. I mean, Marlo is Marlo. He is forever that. Although it's amazing, that actor is really talented, because I like him on Bosch. He plays He plays one of the cops on Bosch, and he's phenomenal on that show. But he's so creepy as Marlo that I struggled with it at first, seeing him do anything else, because he is just Marlo. Marlo is this force of nature.
You didn't talk about the one character that made it outside of the Barksdale crew, and that was Poot.
Ooh.
I wouldn't say that he evolved, but he survived and was able to make it out to the other side and say, live a regular life selling sneakers and stuff. Like he saw that light.
And then the chat was mentioning Slim Charles.
Yeah.
I mean, Slim, I feel like was the same job no matter what crew he worked on. He was always like able to fill that space, whether it's for Joe or for the Barksdales, or even for himself a little bit at the end there when he takes out Cheese. So I feel like Slim is always like that. Like, I don't know that I can't see Slim running an organization. I feel like he's always going to be the guy helping that guy.
True. Because when he was talking to the Greek, he had the other guy with him who knows how to run the organization, who ran his own. So,
I mean, I could even see him like, I mean, I know he doesn't like Marlo, but I could see him like being the same job for Marlo if Marlo decides to reestablish his organization again.
Yeah.
Well, that was it, I think, for us. I wanted to thank everybody who came in the chat and was offering some great comments coming from the chat. There are 3 others of these. If this is the first one you've caught any of and you're a Wire fan, you want to read, check out the other ones. There's a little playlist for these. These gentlemen, they know their Wire, and the deep dives have been just fantastic. And I'm sure we'll continue this at some point down the road because there's always more. This show has endless depth. Sean, do you have anything coming up on your channel? I know tomorrow you got your community show. What's going on tomorrow?
Tomorrow is going to be a show where we talk about Witchblade, since this was the 25th anniversary this week. You know, I've got the first issue reprint, so I'm going to talk about that. I have Sanimation 05 joining us. If you've seen her video, she got a fire AOK from me. Greatest reactions of all time. You know, and the Ranger will show up, so they control each other. Princess Conan himself. So it's going to be fun. You know, and of course, and then Sunday, I got Silver Age Sunday with the Silver Age crew.
And I saw the beginning of, but I got to catch the end. You were on Varingian's channel earlier today talking about one of the
Total
best
Recall.
action movies ever made, Total Recall. Just a hilarious.
We talked about that movie for 40 minutes, and then we went on a tangent for the rest of the show.
Hey, it's okay. That's how these kind of conversations should work. But if you're a big Arnold fan, or if you just like that 80s, 90s action, then definitely check out that show because you guys were on fire.
Oh, yeah. I love doing these shows with him on Fridays, talking movies.
And they're usually earlier in the afternoon because of his time change, right? Because he's in Austria, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ryan is a member of Comic Tom's crew. So if you guys don't know, I put the link to Comic Tom's channel and, of course, the link to Stay Puft 1983 down below. Ryan, is there anything coming up that you're doing? Any Comic Book Karma live streams or anything like that?
I'm trying to think. I spent most of the day there yesterday brainstorming new content with him. So the next time I go up to Tom's, we'll be recording a bunch of stuff. So you should see me on the channel kind of a lot here, I think, actually, in the next couple of weeks. So
nice.
That'll be something to keep an eye out on. A lot of story-based stuff, comic book, ongoing comic book content that
Nice.
him and I are going to talk about. So that'll be fun. Change of pace.
And then you and I, we got to figure out our next top 5. We got to get back on to making Ryan watch some things he doesn't want to watch or read some things he doesn't want to read so that he can then debate and discuss them at length.
I had Carlito reach out to me. We got to do like a gangster movies or something.
I mean, I think he and I could make our lists now. But I know
gangster movies?
Like do a little research first.
I'm wearing a Scarface shirt, bro. I'm ready to go. Gangsters anytime.
All right. Well, then I think we've just figured out our next top 5. So get ready for that, audience.
Yeah, that's going to be fun.
As for me, I've got tomorrow morning with the girls. Then I've got tomorrow afternoon with the Boy Who Had 7. I've been making a mess of my comic collection so that I'm ready for my 3rd or 4th time competing in comic gories. So it'll be me versus Bear Island Comics, and it'll be Matt versus D-Runk. And then the winners of those 2 competitions will face off. We got JP Budget Collecting and Rob Wurst picking the comic gories, and they'll be running the shows for us. So that's tomorrow afternoon. You can watch us test out a new algorithm that might calculate the votes in the chat for us. Test that out. And
what
then
time
tomorrow,
that show is?
What's that?
What time that show will be?
That's 3 Eastern. So that'll be midday. And then tomorrow night, the late night show is going to be I got Bearded Comic Bro coming back, and we did 3 or 4 shows talking about African Americans in cinema. Now we're going to go into sports movies. So we got our first show discussing sports movies, some great films in baseball, some great films in about the Olympics, So we got 5 categories of movies, and we'll talk about some of the best ones in each of those fields, literally and figuratively, I guess.
Fields.
Right. But this will
Hey,
be the first.
I want to see Eddie on that list just for the New York love.
Eddie, little Whoopi Goldberg love.
Yeah.
Although, funnily enough, I watched Eddie the Eagle today, and that's a good movie. I enjoyed that movie.
Never heard
I've
of
got it
that.
on DVD. You can watch it, sweetheart. Sorry, I just may have just faux pas there. So those are some things you can catch and enjoy. And then Sunday I'm on with Alec for D&D, and then I'm not even going to worry about what's next week. So thanks everyone for enjoying and hanging out for our discussion of The Wire, and hopefully we will do this again soon.
With other guests on so we can get their opinions.
Right?
Oh, look.
That'd be fun.
Ranger just showed up.
Hey, there he
Good
is.
timing.
But thanks everybody for coming. Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.